Coming up on Network Africa. At least 49 people die of thirst after their truck broke down in the remote part of the Sahara Desert. South Africa and Kenya hold high-level bilateral talks, deepen ties on trade and diplomacy following escalating conflict between the U.S., Israel, and Iran and growing migration concerns. The military government in Mali places a multi-million-dollar bounty on the head of one of the Sahel's most wanted jihadist leaders. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Amarachi Ubani. We begin in North Africa, where at least 49 people have died of thirst in a remote part of the Sahara Desert in the northern Niger after the truck carrying them broke down. Authorities say the group was returning from Mali, where they had attended a Muslim festival when they ran out of water. They were stranded more than 80 kilometers west of Asamaka, a major border crossing point between Niger and Algeria. The governor of Agadez, Ibra Boulama, in a statement says the travelers were trapped in the heart of a hostile environment where extreme temperatures and a lack of supply points made survival extremely difficult. Only 2 people survived, trekking across the desert to Asamaka, where they alerted authorities. For several days, the driver and passengers had made repeated attempts to repair the vehicle, but their efforts ultimately proved unsuccessful. And in Libya, hundreds of people were gathered outside the UN Refugee Agency headquarters in Tripoli on Thursday to protest the presence of irregular migrants and refugees, calling for their departure from the country. The demonstrators accused the United Nations agency of seeking to permanently settle irregular migrants in the North African nation and are calling for the closure of the agency's headquarters in the capital. Libya remains a key departure point for irregular migrants seeking to reach Europe by crossing the Mediterranean. As of mid-2024, the International Organization for Migration estimated that around 900,000 migrants and refugees were living in Libya. Meanwhile, the UN mission in Libya, in a statement, strongly refuted allegations of migrant settlement or resettlement, stating that it is deeply concerned about the spread of misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech regarding the work of the United Nations in the country. Nigeria continues to classify the risk of importing the Bundibugyo strain of the Ebola virus disease as high, citing ongoing regional transmission, international travel population movement, porous borders, and the possibility of delayed detection due to symptoms that closely resemble those of malaria and Lassa fever. The latest information is coming from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, following a recent dynamic risk assessment by the agency. During a briefing in Lagos, the center spoke to journalists on intensified preparedness following outbreaks reported in the DRC and in Uganda. The Director General of the NCDC, Dr. Jide Idris, said the agency has strengthened surveillance and response mechanisms across the country. Highlighting key response strategies, Dr. Idris urged state governments to activate preparedness measures, calling on frontline health workers to maintain a high index of suspicion for suspected cases and appeal to the public to remain calm while adhering to public health advisories.
Let me begin again by reassuring Nigerians that as at now, there is currently no confirmed case of Ebola virus in this country. We don't hope to have. So the states have been requested to activate and sustain preparedness coordination mechanisms, just like I do in NCDC. Each state is supposed to do that on their own. They should strengthen their surveillance and alert management systems, operationalize designated treatment centers, intensify preparedness activities at points of entry and transport hubs. We urge all clinicians and frontline healthcare workers to maintain a high index of suspicion, particularly amongst persons with recent travel history to affected countries or epidemiological links to confirmed or suspected cases. We encourage Nigerians to remain calm. I say again, we do not have any case of Ebola in this country. They should remain calm and continue their normal activities. However, they should also obtain information only from credible sources. Avoid spreading rumors and misinformation. Practice good hygiene, the same thing IPC, hand washing, proper sanitation. These are key. And promptly report any unusual illnesses through established public health channels.
There's no turning back on the U.S.-backed isolation facility in Kenya, going by President William Ruto's defense of the agreement despite protests, court challenges and public anger from citizens. During a state visit to Pretoria, South Africa, alongside the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, President Ruto said the Ebola outbreak in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo poses a regional threat, adding that Kenya has strengthened its screening and preparedness measures. His remarks come amid controversy over a planned 50-bed isolation facility at Laikipia Air Base, intended for Americans exposed to Ebola in the DRC or in Uganda. The project has triggered intense protests in Kenya, with critics accusing the government of putting citizens at risk and allowing the country to be issued a quarantine zone for foreign nationals.
The Ebola situation in Eastern DRC is a source of concern for any country, including Kenya, that is mindful of matters health of its citizens. And the responsible thing to do when there is reports of such high-level infectious outbreak in a region where we have thousands of citizens, Kenyan citizens in DRC. We have soldiers in DRC. The most responsible thing to do is to prepare for any eventuality. And that is what Kenya has done. We have prepared ourselves adequately. We have taken command of all our entry points. We are doing testing of every person coming into Kenya from anywhere near that region. We are testing close to between 2,000 and 3,000 people from all our entry points every day. We have mobilized resources, testing kits, reagents, and all manner of people. We have trained thousands of staff, health staff, to be able to handle that situation. We have now isolation facilities, 23 of them across the country, in different parts of the country. And one of the facilities that has now raised a bit of controversy is the facility we agreed to set up in conjunction with the Americans in one of our military air bases. And why have we done that? We have a huge American military contingent in Kenya, number one. Number two, we have set up the 23 other isolation places in Kenya with the support of friends, among them the Americans, our own resources, but also with the support of Americans. The American
Kenyan President William Ruto. Meanwhile, the escalating U.S.-Israel conflict with Iran and growing migration concerns are among key issues on the agenda for South Africa and Kenya in the high-level bilateral talks. South Africa's president is hosting the Kenyan president for a state visit at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Both nations have built trade and diplomatic ties since 1994, with around 60 South African companies operating in Kenya. Well, this visit includes a new agreement for a 90-day visa-free program between the two. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa, has more.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has rolled out the red carpet for Kenyan President William Ruto. At the capital, Pretoria, the two leaders are holding talks aimed at strengthening political, economic and trade relations between South Africa and Kenya.
Meanwhile, the Israel-Iran conflict and expanding trade relations dominated discussions at South Africa-Kenya talks.
South Africa and Kenya continue to play important roles in seeking solutions to conflicts in our respective regions and on our continent. And together, our countries have stood firm for dialogue, for reconciliation, and an African-led process to resolve disputes.
The conclusion of the additional agreements in trade facilitation, maritime cooperation, gender equality, and women empowerment on our technical, vocational, and training centers in arts, culture, and sports are an important milestone.
South Africa's Transport Minister Barbara Creecy says President William Ruto's state visit is focused on strengthening trade and investment ties, with both countries seeking closer cooperation in rail and port infrastructure to boost connectivity and intra-African trade.
Today we are signing a memorandum of understanding with the Kenyan government that covers issues of maritime cooperation. Maritime and shipping cooperation. It covers issues such as port development, port operations, maritime safety, environmental matters.
While the African Continental Free Trade Area is creating new opportunities for economic integration, concerns around migration and recurring anti-immigrant protests in South Africa continue to pose a potential obstacle to closer regional cooperation.
That's why we said lawlessness will not be allowed, and ethno-tribalism will not be allowed, and ethno-mobilization will not be allowed in the country. We are South Africa. We are one nation. There's no other nation. There's only one nation of South Africa.
Amid ongoing security and humanitarian challenges in the Horn of Africa, South Africa's delegation says the United Nations has a critical role to play in preventing conflict, supporting peace efforts, and promoting long-term stability across the region.
But at the core of all these issues for us, the UN is the key multilateral platform through which all global conflicts will be resolved. And in the African continent is the African Union and SADC on the south tip of the continent. So we will continue to emphasize the importance of multilateral institutions in resolving global conflicts as opposed to unilateral decisions.
As President Cyril Ramaphosa and President William Ruto concludes talks and oversee the signing of cooperation agreements, attention is now turning to how these commitments translate into increased trade, investment and economic growth for both countries and the broader African continent. From Pretoria, South Africa, Innocent Simos, Channels Television News.
We're still in South Africa, where heavy rain and widespread flooding have forced renewed evacuations among communities that have not yet recovered from last month's storms in the Southern Cape. The head of disaster management, Gerard Otto, says more than 600 houses were damaged during the May 6 storms, none of which has been fully repaired, and officials are warning of potential heavy flooding as torrential rains continue to batter the region, while large parts of South Africa's Garden Route remains on high alert. The South African Weather Service has issued an orange level 8 warning for up to 200 millimeters of torrential rain on already saturated ground. Officials also warn that all dams in the district have reached 100% capacity.
My district, I think the last flood to this level was in 1981. More than 600 houses was damaged during the 6th of May period of storms, and that has not been repaired to full. So that people obviously is left with a plastic roof, plastic sheet for a roof, and obviously that everything they've got is wet again.
When we come back after the break on Network Africa. Experts warn of the reality of a warming world on World Environment Day. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Mali's military government has placed a multi-million-dollar bounty on the head of one of the Sahel's most wanted jihadist leaders. Authorities are offering 2 billion CFA francs, that's about $3.5 million, for information leading to the capture or killing of Iyad Ag Ghali. Ghali leads the group for the support of Islam and Muslims, the al-Qaeda-linked force behind some of the region's deadliest attacks. The former Tuareg rebel and diplomat is also wanted by the United States and the International Criminal Court. Meanwhile, Mali is offering an additional reward for intelligence on Ghali's deputy, Amadou Koufa, as well as 2 Tuareg rebel leaders. Officials say the wanted men are accused of planning and carrying out terrorist attacks that threaten lives and property across the country. The announcement comes as Mali, under military rule since 2020, continues to battle jihadist insurgents, Islamic State-linked fighters and armed criminal groups across the Sahel. An uneasy calm is settled on the Somalian capital, Mogadishu, after a second day of gunfire between the army and opposition forces. Former President Sharif Sheikh Ahmed has accused the government of intimidation. Residents have reported heavy gunfire and explosions on Thursday as fighting broke out in several neighborhoods. The violence flared up ahead of planned protests over President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's decision to extend by a year his term, which expired last month and pushed back elections. Ahmed, who was in power from 2009 to 2012, said security forces targeted his home and accused Mohamud's government of illegally altering the constitution. The government and opposition have traded blame for the violence, which prompted calls for restraint from the United Nations. Nigeria's Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Bosun Tijani, has called for a collective effort to protect children online, stating that digital safety has officially become a national priority. Speaking at a roundtable organized by the Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy in collaboration with the Nigeria Data Protection Commission, the minister emphasized that modern social media platforms are no longer passive communication tools, but active digital environments that require stronger safeguards.
Officials, tech leaders and civil society groups are locked in a roundtable session to find concrete, inclusive ways to shield children from digital harm.
To make the internet safer for them.
As Nigeria scales up digital opportunities for its youth, the risks are escalating just as fast. This joint initiative tackles the brutal realities of cyberbullying, harmful content, and online exploitation. The numbers backing this push are alarming. A pre-roundtable survey of nearly 600 respondents reveals deep anxiety.
Protecting children must, and for us in this government, is now a national priority. We all know that the risks are real and growing. And we can see from this survey that we've done that there's public support for actions to be taken. And we all know, and we can establish, that parental consent alone is not sufficient. There's no world where we leave this to just parents. And that Nigeria should adopt a modern duty of care framework. This is what we need to call it. And that this is a shared responsibility.
But policy is only half the battle. Stakeholders insist that tech platforms and parents must step up, demanding stricter accountability and better digital literacy for guardians.
In terms of digital safeguarding, I think it should be an all-rounded effort. And when we're talking of children, an agency or a ministry that comes to mind is the education.
Strike a balance between, ensuring that there's enough verification mechanism, and also, on the other hand, seeing how you adhere to the principle of data minimization.
As parents and as children, so you need to be aware of what you are seeing online, the content you are receiving online, and how you yourself should be able to stay away from the kind of content that is not appropriate for you.
On the defensive, tech industry reps claim they are tightening the noose on bad actors, deploying systems designed to catch and block underage users trying to beat the system.
We have an AI system that scans through the internet. It scans through the internet, looks for harmful content online, be it on social media, be it on the website, be it literally anywhere. It automatically blocks it from you from seeing it.
In UNICEF, we're not differentiating our response from online to offline. We look at it as a whole, and we ensure that the workforce on the ground is equipped with the skill set to provide services when it's reported.
Backed by the landmark Child Online Access Protection Bill passed in 2025, this roundtable becomes a platform for an evidence-based framework to protect Nigeria's youngest digital citizens.
As the world marks World Environment Day today under the global theme, Inspired by Nature for Climate for Our Future, people around the globe are taking part in the #NowForClimate movement, a campaign that uses dance and movement to highlight the urgency of climate action and the growing momentum behind climate solutions. Experts say the reality of a warming world is no longer a distant threat. It's playing out in our streets and on our television screens. Our correspondent Ayola Kasim reports.
No longer a distant forecast, extreme heat is now a daily battle for urban infrastructure, human health and global sports. With 48 teams and 104 matches about to kick off across North America, the FIFA World Cup is under a harsh environmental spotlight, and concerns over athletes and fan safety are peaking. Scientists are warning that extreme heat has become the ultimate opponent on the pitch.
We're all watching the game, but it's stopped because it's too hot. Hot for players, for fans, for everyone. It's hot and getting hotter. That's not random. That's climate change. The planet is heating up after more than a century of burning fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas that traps heat in the atmosphere. And now we're feeling it everywhere.
Studies show that over 85% of the tournament's massive carbon footprint will come from fan transit, and FIFA has pledged to halve emissions by 2030. Meanwhile, critics ask how mega sports truly stay green when the planet is simmering. Some say the answer might lie in how individual cities adapt.
That means slashing emissions, accelerating a just transition away from fossil fuels and towards renewables, the only sustainable path to lower costs and to real energy security. Cutting methane, one of the fastest, cheapest ways to limit near-term warming, protecting forests, land and seas, helping communities adapt to the devastating impacts already here, and it means fulfilling climate finance promises to developing countries to save lives, protect livelihoods and strengthen economies.
This World Environment Day, the United Nations has activated the groundbreaking 50 cities avoiding and adapting to a 50 degrees Celsius world called 50 at 50. This flagship drive unites over 50 global cities from Rio to Lagos to share rapid cooling frameworks, stress test public emergency systems, and implement urban greening.
So you can tell the temperature at different times in Lagos. You can measure temperature over a period, see what has changed in certain areas. We get flags and red alerts on days when someone is doing open burning, or when there's a trigger, or when there's something giving extreme heat in an area. We think that this is a very good way to start. You can't manage what you don't measure, right? So we are measuring, we're keeping an eye. Also, on the common sense side of things, or on the policy side of things, we've been able to make sure that we enforce the policies of planting trees to absorb the city heat.
Lagos, a bustling metropolis of over 20 million people, has long battled the tag of a concrete jungle. Its residents face worsening urban heat islands and heightened flood risks from intense coastal rainstorms. The theme of this year's World Environment Day is Inspired by Nature for Climate for Our Future. It is said that that theme isn't just a slogan, it is a survival strategy.
And we have to really start to rethink about the whole process of our so-called development, our concrete jungles. Concrete will not produce oxygen for you. And if you want to buy the chemically induced scientific oxygen in the hospital, believe you me, it is very, very expensive. It's far better to get it from nature.
Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, is the epicenter of the world climate diplomacy on the 5th of June as the host city. Here, the message to the world leaders is stark.
The story is not yet written, and the pen is in our hands. We can craft our own story by acting to slow down climate change, by delivering a safer nature, by delivering safer and healthier and more prosperous and more equitable societies. It is in our hands.
From the streets of Baku to Lagos, limbo dancing in a forest in Nairobi, to the pitch in North America, the message from the Global Climate Authority this 5th of June is unified. Adaptation is no longer optional as the clock ticks in the race against a warming planet. Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
We end our final edition of Network Africa for the week with a fun fact about Somalia, a country with the largest coastline on Africa's mainland. Somalia has an estimated population of more than 18 million, of which 2.7 million live in the capital and the largest city, Mogadishu. As one of Africa's most ethnically homogeneous countries, around 85% of its residents are ethnic Somalis. The official and national language of the country is Somali, while Arabic is recognized as a second language. The overwhelming majority of the population are Sunni Muslims. And now you know. Thanks for staying with us today and all week. I'm Amarachi Ubani.